Dr. Agarwal, esteemed members on the dais and in the audience. Let me first of all thank the Chamber for providing me this opportunity to have an interaction with all the members. A few thoughts on what went around while making the budget, what sort of thought process we had while we were finalizing the proposals. First and foremost, I would like to mention about that we felt that there was an atmosphere of distrust amongst the taxpayers and the tax department. Each felt that perhaps their share was not what was being perceived by the others. But all said and done, we were very conscious of the fact that the confidence of the taxpayer in the tax administration has to be one which is unflinching and very, very robust. With that view in mind, we came about this idea of putting a taxpayers charter in the statute book. It's not that we have not had this before. We had the citizens charter where few deliverables from the department were mentioned. But then that was more of an administrative framework which we had. To give more teeth to it and also to instill more confidence in the taxpayers, we decided to incorporate that charter in the statute book. And once having been in the statute book, it is definitely enforceable. There are obligations on part of the taxpayers in terms of discharge of their tax obligations. Likewise, we thought we will have something for the tax administration also. We are willing to go through that phase of self-discipline and convey to our taxpayers that we are equally conscious of providing better taxpayer services. In this charter, broadly, I can say that all those deliverables which a taxpayer expects from the department would be mentioned. They would be benchmarked. They would also have certain time frames. And what would be the remedy in case they are not observed? That is broadly the thinking which went. And I'm sure once the charter is rolled out, the taxpayers would be happy to have that. Secondly, it has been the endeavor of the government to reduce tax litigation and to the extent possible resolve disputes. First, to fulfill this desire, we had raised the monetary limits for filing of appeals before the various judicial forum. Despite that, we also had a series of issuance of beneficial circulars whereby we examined certain judicial decisions or certain issues. We came to the conclusion that we would not be contesting those issues further, and hence those circulars were issued and circulated to the field formation, that we would not be making any additions on those issues, and whatever is already filed, we would perhaps be withdrawing that also. So continuing with that philosophy, we came out with this scheme of Vivad Se Vishwas scheme. This scheme is to be seen in the backdrop of the pendency of cases before various judicial authorities. roughly about 4,80,000 cases are pending before the CIT appeals, the ITAT, the High Court, and the Supreme Court. We do expect that the taxpayers would kind of visit their issues which are contested in these appellate forums and would opt for the settlement of those disputes via this scheme. The scheme broadly envisages that so far as the tax demand which is there in these disputes, you just pay that tax demand and rest is taken care of, in the sense that interest and penalty is totally waived off. And once that is done, I suppose the prosecution problem also gets resolved. But in case it is the interest and penalty which is in dispute, then the expectation is that you pay 25% of that. And all this has to be done by 31st of March this year. If for some reason any taxpayer is unable to avail this scheme by that time, he can do so by the first quarter of the next financial year, that is by about 30th June. But with a caveat that in case of tax, that would be increased by 10%, and in case of interest and penalty, instead of 25%, it would be around 30%. We would, the bill has been tabled in the Parliament today, and more details we expect to release as soon as the bill is passed by both the houses. But my earnest appeal to all the taxpayers would be to definitely revisit their issues and try and take the best benefit out of this scheme. Another issue which I think I should share with you is regarding this exemptions and deductions. It is the government policy that all these exemptions and deductions should be eased out in a phased manner. And a beginning of that was made when the corporate tax rate was cut by giving a simpler tax rate or lower tax rate and doing away with the exemptions and deductions. Continuing with that, the same thing got reflected when the personal income tax rates were rationalized. It is also seen that these deductions and exemptions have been a cause for a lot of contentious interpretations and leading to a lot of dispute. I personally would feel that it is better to have a simple, straight, clean, leaner tax structure which is much easier to comply. And in that respect, this rationalization has been done. And as to who would opt for the new scheme or continue with the old scheme would depend on the individual circumstances of the taxpayer. But broadly, I feel that converting to the new scheme, especially for the so-called millennials or persons who have not exactly gone to the extent of utilizing the deductions and exemptions, it would really make some good economic sense to them, as it would leave more disposable income in their hands. Lastly, I would also like to touch upon one good area of that is the department is now in receipt of lot of information from the reporting entities, and many of them who are being increased. So we have now a real-time information about the financial transactions, particularly of high value, being undertaken by the taxpayers. We also intend to make available this set of information vis-a-vis a particular taxpayer on his own account at the income tax side, so that it could be utilized or be referred to by the taxpayer before he files his return of income, just like he checks his 26AS and all. It would also enable the department to go ahead with the exercise which we are planning to extend, that is of pre-filling the returns of income. Now that we have the information from the reporting entities about a particular taxpayer, he just has to kind of confirm that, and that would facilitate his filing of return of income. So I suppose the department is very consciously moving ahead in the direction of reposing lot of trust in the taxpayers, and I would expect a similar reciprocation from them. And we are always available to the taxpayers in case they feel any difficulty or any clarification is required. And in the end, I would conclude by making a further appeal and a fast final appeal that do look at the Vivad Se Vishwas scheme. It would really be a good deal to resolve all your disputes and start the new financial year on a very good note. Thank you very much.